everybody. Welcome to the Good Food Conference 2021. Thank you so much to everybody here today, and thank you to all of those who have worked so hard together to put this three-day experience together. A very special thank you to this year's presenting sponsor, our very dear friends at the Stray Dog Institute. We started planning for this year's online gathering earlier this year, knowing that as we continue to grapple with the world's challenges, it was more important than ever to come together, given our shared aim, to shift quickly to a more sustainable, secure, and just food future. A future where meat is made from plants and cultivated directly from cells will be the default norm across the globe. Over the next 3 days, all of us will have the opportunity to hear and learn from some of the world's leading experts, decision makers, and influencers in this growing and dynamic field. But the truth is that if you are attending this conference, whether you're on the dais or not, you are an influencer. Each of us, in whatever sector we're in and whatever professional chapter we're in, are showing up because we know without a doubt that our future depends on what we figure out and take action on today. This year's conference is different from our in-person gatherings, unsurprisingly. A few key observations. It is 100% online, which enables more of us from all over the globe to gather and connect. While we're not in person, we have intentionally carved out multiple opportunities for networking, and the expo hall interactions are going to be very exciting over the course of the event. We hope all of you will check it out. In the lead up today, you may have heard us describe this conference as Alt Proteins 301 or Alt Proteins 401. Later on, I'll be closing out today's sessions with the help of a few luminaries who have led us to this moment as we reflect together on how far we've come and what conditions we need to create for the next leg of this journey. For right now, though, we wanted to use the opening stage for special messages from specific people working in the public arena, the private arena, and civil society who are leading the way behind the scenes. People who all of us at GFI are deeply, deeply grateful for. In this first opening session of the 2021 Good Food Conference, we're going to hear from Dr. Linda Blevins from the National Science Foundation, Lisa Feria from Stray Dog Capital, Lisa Sweet from the World Economic Forum, and Representative Rosa DeLauro, chair of the House Appropriations Committee. Before we hear from them, just a few quick guidelines for participating. With any large gathering like this, there are a diversity of perspectives, backgrounds, and disciplines represented. We encourage open, honest, and frank discussions, but please also practice active listening and communicate with respect. And definitely, please make active use of the chat function. So without further ado, let's listen in to GFI Vice President for Science and Technology, Dr. Liz Specht, and National Science Foundation Deputy Assistant Director, Dr. Linda Blevins. And then we're going to hear from GFI Vice President for Corporate Engagement, Caroline Bushnell, in conversation with Stray Dog Capital Managing Partner and CEO, Lisa Feria.
Good morning to those of us in the Western Hemisphere, and good afternoon, good evening, and good night to those of you joining us from all over the globe. I am delighted today to be joined by Dr. Linda Blevins, who serves as the Deputy Assistant Director of the Engineering Directorate at the National Science Foundation. Dr. Blevins has extensive experience across multiple angles of public support for scientific research, with prior roles at NSF, as well as roles in the Department of Energy's Office of Science, at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and at Sandia National Laboratories. I'm so grateful to be speaking with you today, Dr. Blevins. So throughout your professional experience, you've had the opportunity to oversee multiple mechanisms by which the US government can support leading edge advances in critical technologies. I would say right now we're at a pretty critical moment in the growing recognition of alternative protein research as an important emerging field for addressing really pressing issues of food security, sustainability, even public health. What do you see as the role of the government as a whole and NSF in particular in paving the way for emerging technologies like alternative proteins?
Thank you, Liz. Thanks for the warm introduction. And I'm very happy to be here today to talk to you a little bit about the NSF and the different things we're doing relative to alternative proteins. So it's an excellent question about the role of the government. Our mission is really to support basic science. And the vision of the NSF is to create a nation that's a leader, a global leader in science and engineering. We do that by supporting basic research in single disciplines like biology or chemistry or even basic engineering research, but also research that crosses disciplines and involves all of the different fields. Our reach at NSF is we spend about $8 billion a year on research, largely at colleges and universities, but also institutions like startups. And we fund research at 2,000 of these institutions across all 50 states. Features of our work are that all disciplines are present and can be integrated. We also integrate education into everything we do. All of our research is integrated with education so that we're bringing along the future workforce at the same time we're performing cutting edge research. And we also have broadening participation in our DNA. So everything we do, we try to reach what we call the missing millions, the folks out there who wouldn't necessarily have access to STEM education and STEM careers. We try to incorporate folks like that more and more into our research. So the role of government is very broad. The role of the NSF is very broad. We really invest in sort of the high risk, high reward, early stage research that might not be invested in other sectors. And as you say, it is a very defining moment. There's currently very broad support for science and engineering and the value of basic research as well as early stage translational research to contribute to big national issues, much like the ones you mentioned that alternative proteins are contributing to.
Great. Yeah, I love that workforce element as well. I think that will be so important in this sector. So you mentioned the interdisciplinary work that NSF sees as really important in a number of fields. You mentioned the Growing Convergence program. Actually, in fact, if folks aren't familiar, one of the very first multi-million-dollar government grants in the whole world for cultivated meat research was, in fact, an NSF Growing Convergence research grant to a team at UC Davis just last year to establish a hub for cultivated meat research. And that brought together fields ranging from animal science to tissue engineering. Can you talk a bit more about why you feel interdisciplinary research is so important for a field like alternative proteins and how government agencies can continue to support this type of work?
Absolutely, yes, thank you. The future of food is a global challenge with a lot of regional variation. We know that extreme weather can disrupt the food supply and exacerbate food inequality. And we know that our current agricultural system is a contributor to global warming. So it really does require a convergent approach. Convergence research allows us to address thorny, complex challenges like this that also address societal needs. It also involves deep integration across disciplines. So we support research related to alternative proteins through disciplinary programs in engineering, biology, materials, the social sciences, the economic sciences, and others, and in programs that cross boundaries. There are other aspects as well. Translational research is another thing that we do. And I talked about how we fund that through our small business program. We also have the I-Corps program. I've already mentioned that. You already brought up the consortium at UC Davis as a great example of convergence research that kind of focuses on the basic research aspects. But we also have another great example in this field, and that's the example of Meaty Foods. And that is a company that we funded through our SBIR program early on that's now having a lot of success. But to hear them tell it, the founders also talk about the way the I-Corps program, the Innovation Corps program, helped them to sort of define their ideas early on, to define who their customers might be, to listen to those customers, and they actually were able to pivot in the direction that they're taking now. And they've had great success in raising funds and are now building a very large manufacturing facility. So I think those two examples, the UC Davis consortium as well as the Meaty Foods example, are perfect examples of how the foundation and the government can contribute in these areas, and how convergence research is important in these areas. I also want to mention a couple of other items. One is the partnerships that we have. We have partnerships with other agencies, we have partnerships with industries, and all of these are important in helping us to link our basic research to practical applications like the alternative protein one, but also many others. We also, as you've already pointed out, you've already noted, we support students in future workforce. And so all of these things, fundamental research, translational research, partnerships in education, they're all areas where NSF and other agencies can advance emerging technologies like alternative proteins.
Great, thank you. I love that case study of Meaty Foods. They're a great example of a company doing innovative work in the fermentation realm. And I'm glad you mentioned the engineering research centers as well. I know there are several academic groups and consortia that are joining together to submit applications for those engineering research centers in this realm.
Cool.
I'd love to circle back to your background as a researcher at Sandia National Laboratories prior to your career at NSF and DOE. You know, thus far, it seems like the vast majority of alternative protein research is being conducted in academic labs or at private companies. Do you see a role for national labs in accelerating the alternative protein field?
Great, good question. Thank you for that. I'm really not sure whether there are any projects ongoing at the labs right now in this area, but I do think that it would be possible. And I can just say that the National Science Foundation, as we fund research at universities and at startups and small businesses, we always encourage our grantees to partner with other organizations. And in fact, there have been some wonderful partnerships with the national labs. We have a perfect example with a recent, a very high profile funding opportunity that we're running now with the AI Institutes, the Artificial Intelligence Institutes, which have a very broad national reach. And they are, many of those institutes are involved collaborations with national labs. And so we really think that's an important, the national labs are important potential partners.
Great. Yeah, I think that's an area that this field can look more closely for collaborations there. Well, I know our time is short here. I'm so appreciative of your time this morning, Dr. Blevins. I know that many of the stakeholders in our audience today will also find your insights extremely valuable as we move into an exciting few days of technical sessions and ecosystem level perspectives. In closing, do you have some quick advice that you would give to researchers who are looking for opportunities to expand their research efforts in the realm of alternative proteins?
Great. Yes, thank you. It's really been wonderful to talk to you. This is quite a wonderful opportunity for me and for us to plug in to this great community. So I would encourage researchers to get to know the NSF. We're always looking for good proposals in basic research in our core programs, but also in our opportunities for translation and for collaborations with other institutions. All sorts of partnership opportunities exist within the foundation. You can find out how to submit proposals at our website, nsf.gov, but also give us a follow on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and the like, to learn more about the kind of work that we fund. And I wanted to bring out the fact that all of our proposals are evaluated against two basic criteria: intellectual merit and broader impacts. And so you have to be able to speak to both of those in everything that you propose. You can also volunteer if you want to learn more about our review process to become a reviewer. We're always looking for good people to be involved in the review process, and it's a great learning experience to do so. So I want to leave you with this thought. We have a lot of flexibility in what we fund at NSF, and we want to fund ideas that are transformative, that are disruptive, and that are in the high risk, high reward area. Bottom line, we want to fund your great ideas, and we want to transform science and make a difference in people's lives. So please come see us and consider submitting your ideas to us for funding.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you helping us kick off this event, and I'll hand it back over to the main stage now.
Good morning, Lisa. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So you've been deep in the alternative protein sector for about 6 years now, since the founding of Stray Dog Capital. And there's been incredible progress in the industry over that time, yet our work, at least to me, feels more urgent now than ever before. Are you also feeling that increasing sense of urgency?
Oh yeah, definitely. I was reading the other day the IPCC report, and we all know that there's a lot of changes happening with the climate. But after reading that and really getting the point driven home of it's not only rising, it's not only widespread, but it's also intensifying. And as we all know, carbon dioxide is the main culprit. And so while that's incredibly alarming and really drives a lot of the urgency in the investments and the things that we do, it's also comforting to know that human activity can still change the path and the trajectory that we're on. We can still do something about it. But when I think about like the general state of the world, not only is climate change accelerating, intensifying, it's also population growth. The latest numbers report that it's going to be 9.9 billion people by 2050. That's going to continue to accelerate climate change and really put a lot of additional pressures on the climate. But it's also the fact that more and more people are eating and dying from what we eat, right? They're eating more animal-based proteins, they're dying from that. And we're all now, and the elections were a great evidence of this, we're really locked into these echo chambers where humans are more polarized than ever. Instead of coming together to really drive a solution to these problems, now we're hearing different facts and different realities and things like that. But the good news is that plant-based, right, plants in general and the food system is such a big contributor to climate change that if we can make strides towards a better food system, a more plant-centric food system, we really have a shot of changing this trajectory, even with population growth.
Absolutely. And can you talk maybe a little bit more about the types of companies that, for example, Stray Dog is investing in and the role you see them playing in helping to alleviate these kind of many burdens that the food system is putting on the planet?
Yeah, I mean, our companies, our Stray Dog Capital, our focus is really to invest in companies that are going to replace the most environmentally harmful products out there, right? So our companies are really meant to increase the sustainability of our overall food system, but also bring a better world in the sense that we can eat the things that we want to eat. So our companies are really driving towards that win-win-win situation where we're seeing now more than ever since we started investing many years ago, just a concentration of incredible top talent in startups and entrepreneurs who might have taken a technology startup or a healthcare startup. We're seeing those come into food now. And so we're able to support these incredible companies that are really going to make a difference because they're so incredibly innovative.
The innovation in the sector really is amazing, and we'll be hearing from 12 actually different startups during this conference at our Pitch Slam. So folks will get to see some of this firsthand. So it sounds like you're pretty bullish on the sector. So, ultimately, where do you envision this industry going, say, looking ahead to 2050?
Yeah, I think the products in these categories that we're supporting now will become the mainstream products. And the reason is because we are sitting in the in the crux of major trends that are happening. These are not products that I'm saying I'm going to put in the marketplace, or our companies are going to launch into the marketplace and they will have nowhere to go because people aren't looking for them. These are products that people are looking for. So if you'll see companies like Beyond Meat or Oatly or any of these companies, Impossible, that continue to increase the penetration of their products because they have such a willing and wanting market in the other side. And so what we see when we look at 2050 is the change in demographics. These millennials, these Gen Zs are really driving changes in the food system. They're asking for different things. They're demanding different things. And so we see this category growing right alongside them as they continue to be the main cohorts of the largest cohorts Earth has ever seen. And we expect that future generations will also have a higher level of consciousness and awareness of the impact of our plate and our food on the environment.
And so with all that, ultimately, I know we don't have crystal balls, but how big do you think the market could get? What kind of market share, would alternatives potentially capture of the total protein market?
Yeah, I think alternative products can become the majority of the products out there because they come in so many different shapes and sizes and forms and types. And you're talking about plant-based plus cellular agriculture, blended products. You're talking about different proteins that we really haven't really used or expanded upon, lupin, et cetera. I mean, we are looking at expanding the realm of possibilities of how we make our food. And with that comes a variety of opportunities to create that food in every shape, way, form. I mean, I could have told you the last the first GFI conference that I was on, I could never have told you that I would be sitting here tasting a plant-based drumstick. Like, it's just the rate of innovation has impressed and surprised even us who are used to seeing what's the newest and the greatest. And what we're seeing is that that's not only US based, that's globally. A lot of the new companies that we're seeing are coming globally. They're coming from other countries outside the US. And so when you see that massive wave, that tsunami of different products and startups and innovators and things like that happening globally, well, that will result into is a higher level of penetration because you just simply have a group of consumers who want to eat this way that are continuing to become and grow and become the largest, more dominant consumer cohort base in the world. And then you're seeing a higher level of awareness of climate change and an opening of availability in terms of plant proteins and grants and other things that will help pave the path towards these products. So there really is no reason for these products not to continue to earn market share and take market share.
And that's an exciting vision. And so given the critical moment that we find ourselves in now in the industry, are there certain things that you think needs to happen and happen soon to help us achieve that vision?
Yeah, great question. I think there's a need for both public and private progress to be made at the same time simultaneously. Because from a private market, which is where we play as venture capitalists, we will continue to support companies, right? The private investment there has grown so aggressively. And just in 2020, which, none of us need reminding, that was a terrible pandemic high year. The level of investments in this market were the highest that the industry has ever seen, just in 2020. And over 44% of those were new or unique investors. It's not only straight up capital investing in everything, it's other investors coming into the space and continuing to grow this space. And so what that results into is that the private markets are eager and ready and identify the opportunity that attracts and continues to attract entrepreneurs because they will get funding, they can get exits, et cetera. And so the private, the banks, all that system needs to work to continue to support innovation. At the same time, the public markets need to be continued to expand in this direction. And that's a lot of the work that GFI is doing, where, it's grants for research, it's additional subsidies for alternative proteins, it's just so many different things, policies, additional push towards schools and hospitals to have more plant-based options. It's just the whole world of public health and how do we get our institutions to support this change. I would say is as important as what we're doing with the capital on the private side. And those two things need to work together in order to really accelerate and drive this movement to continue to grow, this market to continue to fulfill how big it can be.
Absolutely. And on the innovation side of things, are there certain challenges you feel that, you know, the companies and the startups in the space really need to prioritize solving for?
Yeah, I mean, we need to continue to move towards building sustainable companies. One of the things that I love seeing in an entrepreneur who will pitch to us is a person in a group that already has in mind what this company could look like if it were the next General Mills. It's not only about, hey, I need this amount of money right now and I'm a pre-seed company, I'm really small, I have 2 people that work for me. No, it's like, what do I need to do if I were to project forward into being a $20 billion company? And now I'm projecting that, then I'm taking that back into what would I need to do now in the pre-seed level? And that's what that kind of thinking really is always what we look for at Straight Up Capital, because we really want entrepreneurs and companies that are building that next General Mills, that are building the next Unilever, right? That will become those companies. And so that sustainable long-term growth is so important. And that long-term vision is so important, because then you create a company that should be and will continue to grow to be future-proof, right? What we've seen in other categories, ride sharing comes to mind, is that the private markets, investors support on unsustainable business model. So investors continue to pour money into an unsustainable business model. Once that turns into the public market, then everything is revealed. All the skeletons are in the closet. It's not sustainable. It's not appropriate for the long term, et cetera. And so what we see is that then those companies have a really hard time holding to value when they're in the public market, something that we're not seeing with these plant-based companies. So if I were to advise, and I continue to mentor our companies to really think about how can they become the company that when they go from private to public continues to increase in value and hold their value, as opposed to a company that is overly valued and then as soon as it hits the public market, because the fundamentals and the go to business strategy is not sound.
That's good advice for many folks in the audience, I'm sure. So what are you seeing that's making you hopeful right now that, you know, you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, I think that there's so much excitement around the new products and the new categories that we barely begun to delve into. I am so excited about seafood. You know, if I were to say to you, hey, go find me a great burger, plant-based burger, like you'll probably have 5 different options that will completely impress me and I would love. But if I were to say, hey, go find me a great lobster product, you know, like they're not yet at the retail level. They're very small. They're not there yet. Imagine how many of those categories we still have to transition and transform. I am so excited about having amazing Beyond Meat level quality products in all those categories. And we continue as Straight Up Capital to move towards filling and supporting companies in each one of those categories. So I'm excited about the level of innovation that I'm seeing, and also because we get to populate these categories with amazing products that nobody has seen before or even envisioned. I'm excited about the talent and the quality of entrepreneurs that I'm seeing, because the people that I'm seeing that come with so much experience, that have a lot of passion for what they're doing, but also have a lot of the skills necessary to survive in a public and private market. And so I'm really excited about the higher quality of starting teams that I'm seeing, because I think that's going to drive a lot of the innovation and the sustainable business that we need in the future. I'm really excited about what I'm seeing in the transition of private to public, that sustained value, and also by the level of acquisitions, because I'm seeing a lot of the strategics and other big groups recognize the value of this market and acquire companies or even launch companies. So I'm seeing this as a massive group movement where, you know, the strategics are getting in, the incumbents are getting in, the venture capitalists are in, the public groups and nonprofits like GFI are in. and having that neural network already assembled and working towards this final, the 2050 questions that you asked me about how do we turn this into mainstream instead of alternative. I'm excited about that network, that neural network being built, because I think that's what you need in order to really accelerate and keep that acceleration moving forward.
I completely agree with you about being on the tipping point, right at the precipice now.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've discussed, it really is an exciting and critical moment for the industry. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I really enjoyed chatting with you, Lisa.
Same here, and thank you for having me again.
All right. Thank you, Liz, Caroline, Dr. Linda Blevins, and Lisa Feria for your insights and your optimism, as well as all of the work that you are doing to accelerate a transition to a better food future. I put this in the chat, but I was just blown away by Lisa's optimism there at the end. I'm so fired up and ready to go. I hope everybody shared my sense of her spirit. And her collaboration, just the everybody together, and that's what we are right now. I wanted to let everybody know that as of this moment, we have more than 1,700 registrants from 66 countries. We have 55 expo hall booths, so I hope folks will check those out, please. And we have 42 sponsors, and I hope you will go and check out the folks who wanted to make this conference a reality. We are deeply grateful to all of them. All right, we're going to close today's opening plenary with 2 additional voices. First, we will hear from Lisa Sweet from the World Economic Forum. She's going to be sending greetings from the UN Food Systems Summit, which convenes tomorrow. Lisa and WEF have been superb partners to GFI, both on the UN Food Systems Summit and more generally as focusing on alternative proteins and the transformative positive value of this shift. So we are thrilled to have her with us. And then we're going to hear from Representative Rosa DeLauro, Chair of the House Appropriations Committee. Representative DeLauro has been an unflagging and incredibly powerful voice for alternative proteins in the Congress. And we could not be more grateful to her for her just truly incredible and unparalleled leadership. And in her video recording, I think you are going to be just incredibly impressed by her commitment and her passion. So with that, I will hand it to them.
Hello and welcome to the Good Food Conference. I'm joining you today from Geneva, Switzerland, where the World Economic Forum is headquartered. The World Economic Forum is the international organization for public-private cooperation, where we work to engage the foremost political, business, cultural, and other leaders of society to shape the global, regional, and industry agendas. The WEF is increasingly seeking as well to draw in the expertise of innovators from around the world through our Uplink platform, a digital crowd engagement platform that connects entrepreneurs and champions of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, and a platform I invite all of you to join. Universally accessible, healthy, and sustainable protein sources are critical to meeting the SDGs in the Paris Climate Agreement. The World Economic Forum's Future Protein Initiative recognizes that business as usual is not an option when it comes to the protein of tomorrow. Our recent Uplink challenges on oceans and blue foods, for instance, have highlighted the power of algae as a key innovative solution. And diversified and alternative protein innovation is one of the key pathways toward achieving the SDGs and the Paris targets, and forms a central pillar of our work. Because of this centrality, I am so pleased to be part of the Good Food Conference. It is a space where I have drawn many insights in the past and developed strong connections, which have helped me in my everyday work. And I wish the same for you over the coming days. This is a busy week. In addition to the Good Food Conference, tomorrow is the United Nations' first ever Food Systems Summit. This inaugural event is an important recognition by the UN and government leadership around the world of the power of food and agriculture systems to address the world's most pressing problems. Over the past year, the WEF has led the summit's strategy around innovation and coordinated closely with GFI, the summit's innovation lead for the action track on sustainable and healthy diets. During the lead up to this week's Food Systems Summit, alternative and diversified proteins have emerged as one of the innovative solutions necessary to address the challenges we face. We hope the summit is just the beginning of alternative and diversified proteins being embedded into the global food systems and climate change conversations at the level of the UN. The UN Food Systems Summit is entirely virtual, so I hope you'll be able to tune in during the breaks in the Good Food Conference. Finally, I look forward to the WEF's continued collaboration with the Good Food Institute. Thanks to all of today's attendees for your work to create a more sustainable and healthy future for all.
Hello, this is Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, representing Connecticut's 3rd Congressional District. I want to thank Bruce Friedrich, founder and CEO of the Good Food Institute, for that kind introduction and for his outstanding work and vision, rethinking our relationship with food to help solve our climate change and public health crises. I am honored to join you for the Good Food Institute's 3rd annual conference, Charting the Global Roadmap for Alternative Proteins. So please, let me recognize all the scientists, entrepreneurs, investors, policymakers, and corporate leaders joining us from around the world, organized around the singular mission to accelerate change, eliminate obstacles, and scale solutions for mainstreaming alternative proteins across our global food system. I want you to know that I share this goal, and I have been proud to champion the growth of this movement since the beginning. And I am thrilled with the progress we have made together in this past year. This Congress, I became chair of the House Appropriations Committee, and one of my main priorities was to include, for the first time, dedicated funding for alternative proteins research in the spending bill that will fund the U.S. Department of Agriculture next year. If enacted, the USDA will receive $5 million to collaborate with other government agencies, like the National Science Foundation, to advance important research in developing, manufacturing, and promoting alternative proteins. And I am committed to ensuring this gets done. Additionally, I have continued to fight for alternative protein research to be categorized as, quote, climate science. After all, we cannot solve the climate crisis without addressing the 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions generated by industrialized animal agriculture production and its continued reliance on concentrated animal feeding operations, or CAFOs. For too many decades, consolidated agriculture corporations have used livestock CAFOs to increase industry profits at the expense of the environment, public health, and the viability of small and mid-sized family farmers and rural communities. I believe advancing alternative proteins holds the key to ending our reliance on CAFOs for meat production once and for all. And that is why during an appropriations hearing earlier this year, I told Secretary Vilsack about my vision for USDA to move towards parity in funding for alternative protein research. So keep up the good work, and thank you for attending this year's Good Food Conference and being part of this important effort. You are playing a vital role in combating climate change and helping create a resilient and equitable food system for all of us. I am proud to be your ally, and I am excited about partnering with you in the future and for many years to come. Thank you, and have a great conference.
Honestly, I just want to let that soak in. Rosa DeLauro is so awesome, and it was just wonderful looking at the chat and all of the love. So a huge thanks to Representative DeLauro, to Dr. Linda Blevins and the National Science Foundation, to Lisa Feria and Stray Dog Capital, to Lisa Sweet and the World Economic Forum, to all of you for helping us get this year's Good Food Conference officially underway. So starting in just a couple moments, our in-depth sessions will begin. As you'll see, a few sessions happen concurrently, but no worries if you want to experience it all. Recordings of many of the sessions will be available, almost all of them, I think, on the platform throughout the conference. So generally about an hour after the session ends, there should be a recording. And then post-conference, we will make all of the sessions available through GFI channels. So if you're not yet on our newsletter list, go to gfi.org/newsletters and sign up. Before I cede the virtual floor, I want to thank all of our sponsors. As you can see, a diversity of entities of all sizes are seeing themselves as a part of the transition toward alternative proteins. On behalf of the entire Good Food Institute team in the United States and around the world, thank you not only to our sponsors, but to our featured speakers, to our panelists, to our moderators, and to every single one of you who's joining us over the course of these 3 days of in-depth and focused discussions. You will see me again at the end of the day as we close out with a guest-moderated conversation between some of the trailblazing luminaries who got us to this point in time. So until then, cheers to day one, enjoy, and please be inspired. Thanks, everybody.